We all want the best of both. Dessert without calories, luxury without expense. And how about security without passwords? With Okta, it's possible. We secure identity so you can safely use any technology. Okta, the world's identity company.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for IKEA Business Network for free today at IKEA.com.
Welcome to Inc. for Starters with Alexa Vonn Foundation. I'm Alexa, a serial entrepreneur myself and founder and managing partner of Inspired Capital, a venture firm that backs fearless founders who are solving some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. Now in our 6th season, we sit down each week with one of the best founders on the planet to hear their story of guts, inspiration, and drive. Let's dive right in. Hi, everybody. This week, I'm excited for you to meet my good friend, Lindsey Vonn, one of the most decorated American ski racers in history and widely regarded amongst the greatest of all time. Lindsey burst into the international skiing scene in 1999 at the age of 14 and has since captivated the world with her perseverance and superhuman abilities on the slopes. She's won 4 World Cup overall championships, one of only 2 female skiers to ever do so. Lindsey won the gold medal in the downhill at the 2010 Winter Olympics, the first one for an American woman. She's also won a record 8 World Cup season titles in the downhill discipline and 3 consecutive titles for the combined. Lindsey is also a New York Times bestselling author and is the founder of the Lindsey Vonn Foundation, which supports girls through scholarship, education, and athletics. In 2019, Lindsey announced her retirement from ski racing. Since her retirement, she has launched a production company called Apres Productions and released her memoir, Rise. And with that, let's welcome the truly unbeatable Lindsey. First of all, Lindsey, it has been so fun to get to know you, admire you. You are an absolute blast of a human. Let's just go back to the beginning and let's take a minute and let's talk about Lindsey Vonn, the athlete, the entrepreneur, the business, the creator. I mean, you really have defied gravity on many levels. So let's just start from the beginning. How do you think about that?
As a kid, I set out to be, a skier because I loved it. I didn't expect kind of anything that occurred in my career to actually happen. I remember when I was in elementary school, there was a school project. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I still have it. And in the book, it says I want to be the best ski racer of all time. So I've always wanted to be a ski racer. It's always been that way. I think partially because I was never good at anything else. But yeah, my career has definitely been an amazing ride and one that I cherish.
I think there's so much to cover in your career. And I actually think your ski career is really a lesson in a differentiated version of entrepreneurship. You set out on your own with a gigantic ambition. You made it come true. And so let's go back and talk about kicking that off. I think one of the things I loved, and actually I repeated to my 9-year-old daughter, Toby, that when you were basically her age, you set out your plan with your dad and you literally wrote it down. Talk about that path to becoming the best ski racer in the world, an Olympic gold medal to boot.
I met my idol, Peekaboo Street, at an autograph signing in Minnesota when I was 9. And I came home from that signing and I said, Dad, I want to be in the Olympics. I want to be just like Peekaboo. And he didn't laugh. He didn't even question my ambition. We just sat down and made a 10-year plan to make the Salt Lake Olympics in 2002, and I would be 17. And my dad was a racer, so he kind of understood the process of racing and, what level of races I needed to win at to be able to move to the next level and to, work my way up in the rankings to even make the team. So it was really interesting looking back that my dad, had so much belief in me at 9 years old. And when we talk about the story, he was like, I wasn't exactly sure, but when I saw you training in Mount Hood, Oregon, and it was lightning and raining and there was no one else on the hill, you were hiking up the hill and skiing down and hiking up and skiing down. And he thought, maybe she has what it takes to be something. So I think, it was a combination of my parents believing in me, having that goal after meeting my idol and just working at it. I never felt like I was giving up anything. When I was a kid, I didn't go to prom. I didn't have a lot of friends. I didn't do sleepovers. I made a lot of sacrifices, but it never seemed like a sacrifice to me because I always had that goal. Ever since then, I've been a really big proponent of having those long-term goals and working backwards, because you're never going to get to where you want to go unless you can see, what do you want to do in 10 years. My dad really instilled that goal setting in when I was that young, and it worked out. I made the Olympics at 17.
It's wild. It really is wild. Um, by the way, you just said something which is so simple, which is like you really, really set the plan and then you work backwards. And that is such an important ingredient to success that I feel like we don't talk enough about. Can you tell me a little bit about um, how you really thought about it year by year? Just give us like a quick insight into like how you actually charted that.
Well, in order to make the team, you had to be successful at different levels of ski racing. There's, junior racing, and then I moved into FIS racing, which is after you're 15, you're eligible to compete with the adults, basically. I had to succeed at the North American level, then the European level, and then the World Cup in order to make the Olympic team. It was 10 years, and then I worked back. Each year I had a goal of I had to make it to this point in order to get to the next point the following year. So I was regimented, not just in the long term, but in the short term, and then also in like the very near term. I had every weekend I had to have a certain point profile. I had to, get maybe top 3 or top 5 if I wanted to make the points in order to get the ranking to race in the next series. So it was one goal after the other. Even if I wasn't making progress, I think I always had that vision of my end goal. And again, that's really hard to do when you're 9, but I was just so driven, and so those short-term and long-term goals just seemed really natural to me, and I think for kids, it's really hard to make them understand the value of work ethic and sacrifice and what it means to give up something now for something later. And I really understood that concept when I was that young, having that goal and making progress every race just made me realize, okay, if I make these sacrifices now, it's going to get me to where I want to go.
I love that. One other thing I really admire about you, and it's quite brilliant, Lindsey, which is that you really started thinking about yourself as a business early. And like, candidly, we're really ahead of the curve of the creator economy and sort of the individual as a business movement, which has happened pretty profoundly over the last, 7 to 10 years. Talk a little bit about how that psychology made an impact. And obviously you've had partners with some of the biggest brands, Red Bull, Under Armour for decades, et cetera. You understood intuitively that you weren't just an athlete, you were a business. Tell us more about that.
I mean, I have to give my dad kind of full credit on that one. When I was growing up, there would be different examples of, former ski racers or former athletes, and they were kind of ambassadors to different ski resorts. And he would ask me, is this what you want to be when you grow up? And I'm like, no, not really. I don't really want to be an ambassador to a ski resort. And he's like, well, you have to be more than an athlete then. Like, you really have to work hard at being something beyond a ski racer. And so I had that kind of concept in my head since I was a kid. And my dad, he made a website for me when I was like 12 years old, which I don't know. He like hired somebody. We did a whole photo shoot, and I thought my dad was completely insane. I was like, what am I doing here? But it was like, that was the new wave. Every athlete had a website. It was the way to promote yourself. We didn't have Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, social media that we have now. So websites were the only thing we had. And he would pull out articles from magazines of like Mia Hamm and a bunch of tennis players. And he was like, this is the time for women in sports. You were born in an amazing time and you have to seize this opportunity. So I did interviews. I was really diligent about, trying to better myself. I watched my interviews. I tried to learn, how do I become better? How do I speak better? How do I interact with people better? I learned as I went. I didn't really have anyone teaching me. I just tried to be better. I also spoke German because I wanted to connect with kind of the fan base of ski racing, which pretty much everyone speaks German. So that helped my marketability in Europe. I got my first kind of big contract with Red Bull when I was 19 years old. I've been with them ever since. So I'm in my 20th year of sponsorship, which is kind of crazy.
Wow.
Been with Rolex for 15 years, Under Armour almost 20 years. All of my contracts have been very long term, and it stems from that concept that my dad kind of ingrained in me, is that like I have to be more and I have to work harder. I've worked hard at maintaining my relationships, and it's not about a paycheck. It's not about putting my name on something. It's about building a true partnership, because if I can help them grow, they can help me grow, and we grow together and we become more successful as a team.
You have such a natural understanding of partnership and longevity and commitment. Can you give us a sense of what goes into a great brand partnership? What does that look like?
I mean, I really look at the people, who am I doing business with? Do I like them? Are they good people? Do they have a good vision? Are they hardworking? Are they full of crap? I weigh all that out. I meet everyone and I really build a relationship with them. And, with Under Armour, when I signed with them, they didn't have shoes. They really didn't have very much of a women's line at all. But I believed in Kevin, and Kevin believed in me. And that's why we're here 20 years later, is because of that belief in each other. And same with Red Bull. I flew over to Austria and I had this intense interview with them for like 3 days. And the bottom line from that trip was that they wanted to help me and I wanted to help them. And I believed in what we could do together because they were so motivated. And it wasn't just, we want to put your name and associate it with our brand. It was, how can we help you succeed so that we succeed together? They paid for my trainer. They paid for my physical therapist. They paid for a lot of my travel so that I didn't have to sit next to the toilet on my 14-hour flight to New Zealand, which happened very often when I was, that age. So they just really invested in me. And so again, it's like that personal investment in each other that really makes the difference in those long-term relationships, because we can all, do short-term deals, and I'm sure some of them will probably be successful, but is that really going to help you in the long term from your brand, from your business? And I always think long-term is a much better strategy.
I love that. And having gotten to know you, you really are a relationship person at your core, and an incredibly friendly and warm one to boot. I want to move to your foundation because I know it matters so much to you. And I want you to give us the full founding story. You launched it in 2015. And one thing I'm really struck by was the fact that you launched your foundation while you were injured, which is obviously a very challenging emotional time for you. And there's this part of you, Lindsey, that I admire a lot, which is you're really good at taking something that's hard or bad. You find the positive. And during that moment of being injured, you launched your foundation and turned that moment into an incredibly powerful and positive one in the rearview mirror. It is so you. Tell us about your foundation.
Well, I think I just have to go back to the point of the reason why I can turn things that seemingly are so negative into something positive is from my mother. She had a stroke when she had me, and she was, physically impaired, and we never skied together. We couldn't do any of the physical things that most parents do with their children. But my mom had this perpetual positivity. No matter what happened in her life, she was always positive. And so I have this perspective of no matter what happens to me, I can always work hard and come back from it, and my mother could not. So it's really my responsibility to have that perspective as well. So when I got injured in 2013, I came back and I fought hard to make the Olympics, and I blew out my knee again for the second time. So I was back-to-back ACLs. I missed the Olympics, and I thought, what can I do with this incredibly depressing situation and make something positive out of it? And I wanted to start my own foundation. And so that's kind of where it stemmed from. And when I look at my life and what impacted me, meeting Peekaboo Street, my idol, really changed, I think, my perspective and my path in life, was because I met someone for 90 seconds that inspired me. Women, we have to see each other doing something in order to feel like we can do it too. And I felt like I could do it too once I met her. And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to say to other girls, you can do it and I'm here to support you. So we have empowerment camps, we have scholarships, we've given over $1 million in scholarships. I'm really focused on the underserved community. And it's been honestly one of the most rewarding things I've ever done.
I love that. You just gave me chills. The fact that like somebody you met for 90 seconds at age 9 changed your whole life.
Yeah, honestly, no, never know what someone says to you. One brief encounter that will change your life, change your perspective. It's like sliding doors, one opens and one closes. And to me, it's such an important responsibility is like, I could meet someone for 90 seconds and they could want to be an Olympian too, or they could, want to start a business or want to be a founder, whatever it is. So I want to inspire those kids, to be as good as they can be in life.
It's just a really good reminder that every person you meet, you can really transform their life in a really simple and powerful way. I do want to take a second to discuss you winning the Olympic gold medal after multiple injuries. What was it like to actually win the thing that you've been searching for and working towards, but particularly after overcoming such adversity and physical challenge?
I can't even describe how incredible it was. I wish I could bottle up that day and relive it because it happened so fast. And, again, it was like, I've been skiing since I was 2.5 years old. I wanted to be an Olympian since I was 9 years old. And when I stood on top of that podium and heard my national anthem, I was so overwhelmed with emotion. And there's the clip of me, which is stuck around, is like, I cross the finish line and I scream and I fall over. And it's pure joy. And it's also relief. I've been wanting this forever and my family is there and they're all crying and my mom's there. And that's honestly one of the best memories I have because when I cross the finish line, it pans directly to my mom. And so now I have that, that memory of her and I'll always have that. So yeah, it's the most emotional experience. I can't even describe it. It was just incredible.
We all want the best of both. Dessert without calories, luxury without expense, and how about security without passwords? With Okta, it's possible. We secure identity for your business, so you can safely use any technology. You can build experiences that are richer and more secure, grow revenue without running up costs, and scale easily, no matter your tech stack. Enjoying the best of both? It's possible. It's Okta. Okta, the world's identity company.
The IKEA Business Network is now open for small businesses and entrepreneurs. Join for free today to get access to interior design services to help you make the most of your workspace, and employee well-being benefits that will help you and your people grow, as well as amazing discounts on travel, insurance, IKEA purchases, deliveries, and more. Take your small business to the next level when you sign up for the IKEA Business Network for free today at IKEA.com.
Let's transition, Lindsey, to growing up. You grew up in Minnesota. You have 4 other siblings, including a set of triplets, which when you told me, I was like, wow, some of the most remarkable human beings out there. I want to go back to talk a little bit about a memory from your childhood that if you could draw a straight line to it, that's not just, meeting your idol, from something in like the home you grew up in that really contributes to where you are today, what would it be? What would be a memory?
I honestly think it was a combination of a lot of things. I don't think it was one particular thing. I think meeting Peekaboo set me, changed my mental approach and, kind of how I perceived what I was doing and, allowed me to have that big goal. But my work ethic came really from my family, my grandparents, my parents. I learned a lot from everyone that I was around. My grandfather he was an excavator. Like he worked with his hands, he worked with machinery. He would leave before I woke up and came home right when I was going to bed. He smelled of sweat and grease and he just worked so hard every single day. And I saw that. I spent every summer with my grandparents and I saw how hard he worked, and my parents same way, and so that type of, grit and internal strength and mental toughness was like ingrained in me, as a child. And when I started skiing, I actually was coached by my dad's old coach, who was from Austria. And so it was, I had so much support and, and again, it's like I just learned something from everyone, and it helped me, take step by step and learn and grow. There's nothing I could say that was like one thing, that I think it was a combination of I was a sponge and I learned from everyone that I was around and I used that to my advantage.
I love that. Um, you have this quote that I love that sort of really jumped out at me, which is you've never been afraid. You've certainly been nervous, but you've never been afraid. I mean, Lindsey, you go down slopes. I have watched videos of you skiing, sister. I'm like, holy smokes. And you've never been afraid. Where does this fearlessness come from?
I've always been that way. I don't know. I mean, I see videos of me when I was like 4 or 5 years old, and I was the oldest grandchild. So we would go on ski trips with my grandparents and my aunts and uncles, and I would just bomb down the hill and race everyone. And I would like taunt my aunts and uncles saying like, I'm going to beat you. Like, and I would race them. And I was a little kid and you could see me just like getting thrown around by the terrain. And I kept going straight. So I've always been a little bit crazy, I think. I've always loved the speed. That's something that I think as a downhill racer, you have to want that. If you're afraid of going fast, it's probably not the right sport for you. Um, but, I also found so much confidence in my preparation. I believed in my strength. I believed in what I was capable of. I never doubted myself for a second. When you're in the starting gate, you're about to risk your life and you have to believe in what you're doing. And every day I was in the gym, that ingrained that belief in my ability. And I saw it that way and I felt that. So it encouraged me to work harder because it just made me more confident.
You know, as somebody who's interviewed lots of remarkable people, people talk a lot about resilience, and everyone's, resilience, it's so important. And I've sort of had this aha moment, Lindsey, recently, which is resilience is you survive through something. And I think you have something better than resilience, which is adaptability, which is that resilience is you get to the other side. Adaptability is you thrive. And to use one of our quotes from when we were recently together, it's the butterfly that turns into a dragon. It's the individual that actually thrives through chaos, challenge. You rise to the occasion. You almost become a better version of yourself. And I think some of the best entrepreneurs and clearly the best athletes have that. Talk a little bit about your ability to adapt.
I mean, it starts from being in a family of seven, having triplet siblings and, having 4 kids under the age of 3 was just insanity. I was responsible for a lot. We had a little bit of help, but not much. I changed a lot of diapers. I was a 6-year-old and I told my mom at like 7 that we don't need the nanny anymore. Like I have it under control. I thrived in that. I loved when there was a lot going on. I felt like I could, manage my family. And as silly as that is as a kid, I think that translated into my life as an adult. Whenever there's, like the cards are stacked against you and there's so many things going on, like I have a way of just kind of being laser focused on one thing and just like grinding until I get there. And adapting to your point with the situation that I'm given and making it the best that it possibly could be. When I'm injured, I don't get down about it. I say, okay, when can I be back? What's the rehab time like? And I use every day as a way to grow and be better and learn more. And by the end of my career, I was not even half the athlete physically that I was before, but I was 3 times the athlete I was mentally. It was a mental, chess game. And I was so much smarter. I had to adapt. I had to figure out what my body can and cannot do. And how do I tactically put myself in a position to succeed with what I have. And so, again, I think it's like that perspective from my mom and combined with a work ethic from my family. And I took all of those things together and I made myself good at adapting to chaos.
Lindsey, you just said something which I've never heard you say, which is really important. You said at the end of your career, you're not as physically strong as you were at the beginning, but you were 3 times as mentally capable. Can you give us a sense of how you hone that mental strength? Because we all need more of that.
I mean, it's something that my dad talked about a lot when I was a kid. And I didn't really get it. He's like, you have to be mentally tough, mentally tough. And I was like, okay, Dad, okay, mentally tough. I can do this. And I had no idea what he was talking about really. And the more I was able to succeed in challenging situations, the more mentally tough I became. And it's kind of like, a notch on your belt. Every situation that you overcome, you learn and you become better, and it gets you like, or maybe your rungs on a ladder, you get closer to your goal. And it helps you, succeed when you have adversity. But there's no trick to it. The same thing with grit. And I, try this a lot with my foundation kids. I'm like, be gritty, be strong. It's like, how do you be strong? And I think in the end, it's really about passion. What are you willing to sacrifice for? How hard are you really willing to work for what you want to achieve? And most people don't really want to put in as much work as it takes to succeed. And so the people that are successful are the ones that have sacrificed. They have the most grit. They're willing, to put it all on the line to achieve what they believe they can achieve. And I just think that's the difference. And mental toughness is kind of a bonus part of being really gritty. It kind of goes hand in hand mentally and physically.
I love that. Before we move to the quick fire round, I want to end on just a few things. You've published, New York Times bestselling author, your most recent memoir, Rise. Why publish?
It's a great question. I just feel like I have learned so much in my life. And when I talk to kids and they ask me all these questions, I'm like, I give the same answer pretty much to everyone. And I wanted to just share that on a larger scale. My first book was more about health and wellness and, being comfortable with who you are. I've been through a lot in my life where I wasn't comfortable with how I looked. And at the end of the day, being healthy is the most important thing, and being confident in who you are. So I felt like those were all lessons that I really needed to share. And then my memoir was very therapeutic, honestly, because I'd finished my career and I just had to get it out. But there were so many lessons about life. Honestly, it had nothing to do with skiing. It had all to do about me as a person and how I grew and how I learned and what shaped me as a person and what helped me get to where I wanted to go in my career. But those are lessons that I thought were important. And I have kids reading my book and I have adults reading my book. It's honestly so rewarding to see that. And hopefully it's been, it's helped in some way to whoever has read it.
I love that. You really have done it all. You've got your ski line, you've got your books, you've got your foundation, you've got a force of a personal business that you run with some of the best brands on the planet as your partners. I mean, I can't wait to see what you do next, actually, Lindsey, because I'm not quite sure what surface you haven't covered. I want to move to the quick fire round where I'm just going to ask first thing that comes to your mind. What is a motto you live by?
Carpe diem, kind of, to seize every opportunity. I have a couple, but that's probably my top one.
I like it. Give me a book of any kind. It literally can be any book that really left a big impact on you.
Grit by Angela Duckworth. It sums everything up for me.
The book comes out of your veins. Give me a sense of how you handle stress.
I don't know if that's a rapid fire question, but it's like chaos. I kind of onboard it. I take it in, I accept it, I find a way through. And then at some point I need to kind of get rid of it. And that's either in the gym or just relaxing with my dogs. Like I need kind of my time away. Like I can handle a lot. I keep piling things on top of me and I'm like, yes, I can do this. But at some point I have to get it off. And that's usually in the gym. And that's kind of the hardest part about retiring is that I use skiing as my outlet to kind of get rid of all the stress that I had. Like skiing didn't give me stress. It helped me relieve stress.
Wow.
And so now I don't have that outlet. So it's much harder for me.
I'm going to end on a fun one, which is my 9-year-old looks up to you because she's 9 and she loves to ski. And she told me the other day, she's like, God, Mom, she's so pretty and she can ski. And so maybe you've already done for my daughter what you have experienced in your own career. But what's one piece of advice that you would give a young girl today?
Never stop believing in yourself. You always have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, who's going to?
I love it so much. Lindsey, thank you so much for joining us today. You are not only just such a fun and wonderful human being to spend time with, but you are just a true force of nature.
Whatever. I'm just trying to keep up with you, Alexa.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Everybody, check out everything Lindsey does. Check out her Instagram. You can follow all of her amazing passions and pursuits. And I want to make sure you check out her foundation. Thank you so much for joining us, Lindsey. And you can join me next week for a new episode of For Starters with Alexa Von Tobel.